welcome to Glitch Point. Yes, we know it is Sunday, but that's okay.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
Exactly. We're here, and that's what matters, so get over it.
Yeah, all of you out there watching right now, get over it.
Yeah, so we will also be doing a show tomorrow at 8.
Double
It was
header.
just, as things happen, it was a little hectic over the season, but that's okay. We have yet to miss a week. Evening
Think so, yeah.
Spencer?
Oh, you cut out there a little bit for a sec. Don't know what happened,
Oh, did
but
I? I said,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Let me say, for that being said, how are you doing, Spencer?
Oh yeah, I'm doing good. Haven't didn't play any games as I wanted to this week, but this week I rearranged my apartment, and my games are in a way better spot now, and I'm liking it. So I'm
Decent.
gonna play a lot of games this week. But
Is
the
this
gyms are
due to
opened
the
up again,
large?
so
Oh, they are? Oh, interesting.
yeah, so actually, I'm going to be doing that too this week because I've haven't gone in a while and I feel like I really need to go. So I've lost a weight. So
Oh, yeah, you're carrying a little extra Christmas joy
yeah,
along
yeah,
with you.
definitely.
uh, that's good. Is this rearrangement due to the large aspect ratio size of the PS5?
No, actually, I so well, yes and no. So when I got the PS5, I decided that I needed to do something different because of how fucking big it was. And
Yeah.
I didn't have a Series X at the time, and that one's not as big. It just has a weird shape and it looks weird sideways, and it's still like thick up on the sideways, so I needed to stand that up. It looked weird. So I rearranged how the consoles were, so now I have like a PlayStation shelf, which is cool, which goes through each generation except for the 4. I put that one in storage. There's no point in having that out anymore. Sad. I mean, like, sadly, there's no point. The PS5 can
Yeah,
play the
no.
PS4. So, um,
It eats the
I have
PS4.
that. So now I have like on the left side the Series X is standing tall, and then on the right side the PS5 is standing even taller. So it's nice framing of the TV.
Yeah,
So
that's good. I mean, I guess because the PS5 does not fit in, because you're using, as the listeners wouldn't know this, but you're using the Cube, like, I don't know, you see them at
oh yeah, the IKEA
Target.
Kallax units and
Yeah,
stuff. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it's just cubes, which I'm starting to hate them. Like they're practical and stuff, but I really want to do something different. So I think I'm gonna start
What else
building
is there?
my own thing. There isn't. I need to build my own thing.
I
Like
mean, the
I've
Cube's
gotten to the
nice. It's
point.
just you're bound to a certain dimension. So you're like, if now that the consoles have exceeded that dimension, it's like, well, great. Now
Yeah,
it just
and
doesn't work.
the other thing is like there's just a lot of empty space. I'm gonna put right now like the entire back is open, so the cords is a goddamn disaster. So I'm gonna put some backing on it so that I can't see the cords, which will look
Oh,
pretty. And then like there's other consoles like the Dreamcast is so small, it just does looks weird. But yeah, there's three consoles that don't fit, and that's the series. I think actually the Series X will fit, but then I would be blocking all vents, and that's not good.
I'm sure
Um,
there's like an aspiring Etsy artist out there that's
oh,
making your
definitely.
perfect shelves or drawers or whatever.
Yeah, I'll look into it. If I can't find it, I'll be that Etsy artist and
Oh yeah?
I'll make my own. Yeah, but the PS5 definitely doesn't fit. The Interestingly enough, the Sega Master System does not fit. It's too long. It's like the weirdest shaped little rectangle, but it's too wide. But even the fat
Interesting.
PS4 or the PS3 fat model fits, and the original Xbox, that monolithic thing fits barely, but it fits. So
I thought when you said you're not, did you end up finishing Out to Sea? Is that what it's called? Out to Sea or Sea something? The Sea
oh
game?
yeah, Call to the Sea.
It's called to
No,
the Sea.
I
No.
love it. I've played about an hour and a half of it, maybe two, and yeah, I was running consistently like a 5 hour game. And those of you who haven't like heard of it, it's like a smaller game, kind of like Myst or The Witness. So you're on a stranded island. Well, not a stranded island. You play as a 1930s wife who's looking for her husband who went off to cure some disease that you have, and he never came back. So you're gonna go try to find him, and it's really nice. Like the art style's pretty good. There's some weirdness with like I don't know what this is called, but you know when you look at the sun and it gets really bright and then you look out of the sun and then your eyes readjust. So it's like dark for a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, so games do that. I don't know what the technique is called in games. Skyrim does it really well. And Fallout 3, fantastic use of that when you exit the vault for the first time. This game does it and it's too heavy. They do
Well,
it
you
too
know,
much.
it's actually a byproduct of ray tracing too, which a lot of people don't like. I've
Hmm.
heard, actually, I think it was Linus or somebody that was criticizing it, the feel of being overwhelmed by the light in a dark area, or
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think this game is using the based on the art style. I don't think it's using ray tracing. It says it's Series X like optimized or whatever, but I there's no instance in this game where they would be using reflections in any way, so I don't see why you
yeah,
do that. But I don't know. I feel like there was another game that did this. It's too heavy. Like you'll be walking and it's like a noticeable adjustment where I'm like it's too fucking dark here.
yeah.
Other
You
than
can't see.
that, but
Yeah,
that was only at the beginning. I stopped noticing after a while, so maybe just the beginning was really odd of an area, but the puzzles are good. I like it, and it's only 5 hours, so I'm gonna try to beat that this week.
good. Yeah, that's good. Um, okay, well, I have a interesting topic. I was having this conversation with my older sister yesterday, and I thought it would be a good viewpoint to put on the show. But it's basically, my question to you is: are social media companies responsible for maintaining or
Oh
monitoring
boy.
people's posts? And there's a big subject matter right
Oh
now with the
boy.
political scenes going on, because we being technically understood, I guess, or as much as you can be, understanding, the tech behind a lot of these algorithms that get run, and also the flaws at which can come with trying to, foresee or forecast how an algorithm will portray your company. I just don't see it as the way that everybody else does. Like, I don't know. I mean, I
Yeah,
feel like
so
it's an evolving system.
I'm also I don't I haven't I really am trying to stay away from
Oh,
all
of
that shit.
course.
So I know there's a lot of feedback, but I don't know how many people are on either side. But based on what I've seen of they completely banned Trump and now I mean not even Twitter, like all these other medias are doing it and like I think so I saw some screenshot from a thing that said Pinterest was. I don't the fuck Pinterest. I don't see why, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and in my opinion, I don't give a shit. Like, yeah,
Oh, of
it's
course.
like, well, not even that I don't give a shit, but I don't think people should be angry that Twitter is removing someone from their platform. Like, I don't think people are putting Twitter into this weird realm where they think it's some everybody has a right to it. Well, that's not the right way of putting it, but like people are like, oh, it's going against free speech. It's a platform that they made. Like this is not I know Twitter's huge now and it's like part of our culture and like it's like synonymous with communication at this point, but it's still an app that a dude made and a company now has and they can do whatever the fuck they want with it. Like if I go to a laser tag place here and I fuck it up, they can ban me for life. Like that's their right. It's their business. It's their building. They can say we don't want you here. You can never come back here, and that's okay. Twitter's
Refusing service. Yeah.
it's yeah like if they have their terms of service and he broke it and they banned him forever, there's like it's an app. Like you don't have any right to break their rules in any way. And I understand that Twitter's a huge thing now and big tech
But
is this big scary
there's two
thing.
elements to this, because they are only around because they service the goals of us. And to be honest, this is I am the outfall, or the how this will actually play out as consumers make decisions, because this is the whole thing that I don't think that people understand. They go and they start yelling on online and other social media platforms, but I don't think people understand that they're voting every time they're using something. It's
Yeah.
so funny that they complain about the thing and they continue to use it. Your vote is the use of the product.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
It's like you said when you downloaded the app and you made an account, you signed the user agreement, no one read, of course. Like you just that's their app. Like you're using a thing that they made and you're saying, "Oh, I want to use this thing." It's like it's their rules. Like they made it, it's their rules. You can't just change it because you think it's something bigger than it is.
but I do think that the companies do have a certain responsibility to maintain a fair ecosystem. Especially like what I know that a lot of companies are now involved in creating new technologies that help reference stories, so that they become more credible. Like, how do you predict credibility, right, in a sea of just mass information? And there's a lot of this going on. It's, I suppose, the current thing with Trump is a freedom of speech thing, but I do think that it's part of the element of the algorithm that allows traction for these things, and also the polarization. I mean, this is going to get big.
Oh yeah.
The polarization of the entire internet is based off of these algorithms, and I think that they should be held responsible for those, but not necessarily for the users. And like the this idea of holding to the First Amendment rights or whatever, it's
Yeah, it's just I agree.
because
Like they have some responsibility there, but at the same time, like again, it's just this weird state of if some small app did this, no one would give a shit. It's because Twitter is so big and everyone treats it like everyone have to have a Twitter, and especially now Twitter is getting used as a news platform, which that you could argue that Twitter is doing that on purpose. Like they've built these news features in. You can follow topics now. You can see what's trending and all these things, but at the end of the day, Twitter was made as just a mass communication app for people to talk to. Like it's still just a social media app,
it
and
is.
you can't. Again, it's their product. Twitter made the product. It's their responsibility to handle however they want. And if they want to push an agenda, that's unfortunate, but sure, they can do that. Or if they don't want certain people on their platform doing certain things, they can push it off. There's other apps that don't do that, and it's like you can't. You don't want to. It's like with like dating websites. There's like farmers only website or Christian Mingle. Like you can't go there if you're not part of that community, and they're gonna be like, no, get off our platform. And if they prove that you're not, they'd probably ban you, because that's the product that they've made and that's the community that they want. Twitter's doing that. It's just that Twitter's ginormous and everybody's treating it like.
But I also think the
it's
banning
everything.
thing is just a quick fix, and like
Oh
right
yeah,
now we're seeing a new navigation that a new world that we're having to deal with, and this isn't going to go away. Yeah, you can silence one person, but somebody else is going to take their place. You've just created a void, which we learn in history. With a void comes new power. And so I don't know. I think that just by hushing it under the rug or trying to fix it that way is not really solving the problem. And I think that they do have a responsibility to kind of understand how people are using these social networks, and kind of making it a fair voice for all, not just the loudest. And I think that's what is angering people the most. Not necessarily that, yes, of course, this new political move shows that they have bias or potential bias in one way or the other by silencing a very recognized user. But I think it's also that people are just kind of this political polarization of the loudest person in the room is getting the most attention, and
yeah.
I think that all platforms need to because I know that Zuckerberg just had to respond about how people were using Facebook for political purposes. And it's across the board. I mean, I think there has to be better ways. I mean, there has to, I guess a good example to show this is there, and this is something we both know of, but I'll tell the listeners. But I think it was Amazon or it might have been Microsoft had uses AI for their hiring platforms.
Yeah.
And then that it was choosing people that were very similar to people that were already employed.
Yep.
And that became problematic because it was being biased. And this is just an example of they're responsible for their technology, and maybe it's not exactly the same. But
yeah, and it's tough because Twitter does have tons and tons of algorithms. Then they probably can be adjusted in one way or the other. But I mean, if you took out all of the weird algorithms and just you looked at Twitter as how it works, it's not like, yes, someone can abuse that platform with just the tools that they're given, which is you have likes and you have retweets and then followers. So like this, when you're really loud and you get out to people start retweeting you, and then it's just like an exponential thing of when you retweet, more people see it, and then or then you get trending. Like the way Twitter works is obviously abusable.
You can alter the way it works. You could have it have a retweet count, right? And then it can only be retweeted at a certain amount of times, so that you kind of taper the consequences of these. I mean, and this is just adding more technology to try to rethink the problem rather than just silencing the loudest person in the room, which I don't think solves the problem at all. I think
But
It's
it's
up to.
like, is that what Twitter really wants to invest all their time in? And should they have to do that? Like,
I
they
do
made a
think
platform,
that's the argument.
and I don't think they should. They made
I
a
think they should.
platform, and that's what it is. Like, that's how the social media works. And I think the biggest issue is if people have a problem with the fact that someone can be loud on Twitter and then it's just always in your feed, don't use the fucking app.
Of course, you could say
Like
that,
that,
but I
like
mean, it's
we've
also
get like
it's
we've
affecting.
put
Sorry.
Twitter on this pedestal of like it is everything. This is how the world communicates now. And it's like, why the fuck did we do that? Of course, if you're gonna have everything dump into one spot or like, and it's always been this way. At some point, it was MySpace, and then it was Facebook, and now Twitter, and Twitter has been lasting a good amount of time, and now it's on TikTok. Like, I personally like the way Twitter is. Of I can follow someone and they can just say some random crap, and I can be like, oh, that's funny, or I can be like, oh, I agree. Like, but I also am not just gonna follow blindly how like all of the people, like a ton of people on Twitter do, or just take whatever I like. That's a huge problem with every single platform is people read shit and they're like, well, I guess that's true.
Well, then let's take it to fake news, right?
Gotta
Are
love
they
it.
now responsible to fake news because now you're having or deep fakes or all this stuff that's coming about like and are these companies responsible to monitor that? And some are saying some are actually progressive, and they're trying to figure out ways to better the ecosystem so that we actually can communicate honest, real information.
Well, I mean, yeah, with the fake news, it comes down to like, is Twitter going to be considered a news platform? Because if they're considered a news platform and they're going to market themselves and build features around we deliver you news, then yeah. But if they're not, then
But
why
they
do they
are.
have to
I mean,
do
they are
that?
and they aren't. I mean,
Well, Seth, that's the
they're
weird thing is
everything.
when you look at Twitter, Twitter itself is not delivering you news. It's news networks making tweets.
Yes,
And
of
that's the
course.
problem. And I like, it's like, do we now have to like, it's it's just odd. Like, it's not Twitter's responsibility that like they built the app that they want, and that's how we're gonna be using it. And if we're all gonna abuse the shit out of it, like, then yeah, we can't start trusting it. And they
Yeah,
try to
but
do with the verified, which I mean that kind of works, I guess. I mean, Twitter is one of the few places where verification actually
yeah.
makes works. All these other social medias are using verification, and I'm like, why? Like, it's just weird. But I just don't see, if you're gonna use Twitter as your news platform and you're gonna take everything at face value, that's your problem. And I
Yeah, but
don't think Twitter should be dumping resources into that.
the second it became, Twitter became popular, it became known as the edge of information, right? If you wanted to get something that was happening right away, like exactly when it was happening, that's where you would get your information from. And so, yeah, I think that they're kind of bound. And to be honest, the government kind of needs to step in a little bit in this, with like they did with, Wikipedia is also considered to be a source of information, and so it's held to a certain standard. I think anything that's a source of information needs to be held to a certain standard, and also just be because, dude, I mean, like you can go the entire different way, and we could be in a communist country and not trust any of our news, and then it's the government that's actually using these platforms and creating these platforms to indoctrinate the people. So to say that they have no responsibility and then we just let anything happen, it can get super weird.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's, I mean, the internet's a crazy place,
but I think
but
the idea of preserving honest information and allowing for anyone to speak, but also to have credibility is important. I think it's an important aspect of what makes America America.
yeah, but I mean, it's just
And
started.
other
I don't know where. I mean, even if we were all in agreement of like, yep, they should have responsibility for fake news and all that stuff. Where the hell do they stop? Like, if I tweet out some random lie and I'm like, Superman 64 is the greatest game ever. Like, I mean,
that's
that's
an
an
opinion, but
opinion,
yeah.
yeah. But like, if I start
It
spitting out
is.
dumb facts, no one's following me. There's no point. So like, do they have to now write an AI algorithm that looks at every tweet and analyzes it with truth, or do they have some committee there that's just manually looking at the big people? And like, it's the other thing of the only reason this is all a freaking problem has been because our president is using Twitter as his platform rather than the platform he literally has of he can call a meeting that's televised nationally at any given time.
Yeah,
He could
which
have
I
done
think is a
that, but he
good thing.
didn't.
to be
And
honest.
it's like no other president has used his Twitter until he left office. I don't know if Biden's going to use Twitter. I doubt it. But at the same time, I know that he's not using Twitter. His team is using Twitter. Donald Trump
Yeah.
was not having a team that analyzed. He literally was tweeting from his phone. No one else is really doing that on that large of a scale. And it's kind of like maybe we don't allow, I don't know.
No, I think it was good that he was using Twitter. I think that it brought us to the culture that we're actually in. I mean, if the president himself is not utilizing and not doing the things that the people are doing, I think it kind of set a precedence for future presidents. How they use it, yes, that's a totally different subject matter, but you know, take it with a grain of salt, right? It's
Well,
like you
okay,
can
I
either
agree with you that it's nice to have a quicker like response time to the president about current events and stuff like that, but I don't think it should be on Twitter. Like, well, I don't want to give Twitter the thing of like I go to Twitter to see what the president's doing today or to see what our country is doing today. That
but
should
again, it's a
be
following aspect, right? Like you don't have to follow him.
no.
But you're
And
right. The retweets go all over the place. The retweeting is actually one of the bigger issues because it does create quite a bit of it's almost that the internet's become so reactionary to everything. So it's
yeah.
like these things just kind of, I mean, if you were able to see them in a 3D model, it would be pretty interesting to see how they propagate through society.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like you said, mentioned like, well, maybe the government might need to get involved. I think when it comes to things relating to our country, we have the government involved, and that's why the president does televised things. And I don't think it's a problem if YouTube is like, oh, we can live stream that too, or maybe they stop televising it and they just start live streaming it on these platforms where we can watch a live video that's not going to be doctored in any way. But I don't want Twitter to be the one source of information that everybody is holding to this high standard, because at the end of the day it's just people yelling at each other like every
It
other
is.
social media platform. Like I guess my thing is I want Twitter to be a place where people just yell at each other. I don't want it to be a news thing. I don't want it to be this thing that's monitored all the time and like the government gets involved in or whatever, because I enjoy the idea that if people are, it's like a place, yeah, just where people are talking. And it's nice that when there are live events happening, you can see live feeds of people, like just normal, ordinary people. The normal,
Yeah.
ordinary people are what make Twitter a platform I enjoyed using. Like when there were riots back in the summer and with COVID and all that stuff, it's like, oh, I see that something's happening. I can go to Twitter and see what's trending, and I can see what real people are thinking right now. And
Well,
then
this
it's
is
way
yeah.
better than, it's like, it's better than the news because the news is going to doctor it in a way, or they have their own bias because that's news networks are allowed to be biased now. But Twitter doesn't have to do that. And it's like I can take whatever I see from Twitter and be like, I can either trust this or not. But most of the time, it's just raw information.
So you're kind of saying that, and maybe I'm misquoting you here, but that the issue is when organizations start to utilize this for their own purposes, and the same news stations that are biased are now utilizing the people's voice, which is what I would say that a lot of social media is kind of gave individuals a voice. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook gave anybody can now create content in an easy way and be able to get it heard. Same way that we're doing this podcast. But now, when bigger corporations use it for their own, devices, it becomes problematic.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, absolutely. Because, like, if you look at the big social media platforms of, like, we had Facebook, which when you really look at Facebook of why it was built and the feature set it has, it's just about connecting with your friends. I mean, not now, but, like, it was built to keep in touch with people that you've met throughout your life and you can message them. Like, okay, that's neat. And Twitter was just you can say things like you just literally a mass text is pretty much what that
Well,
is. And then YouTube was like, yeah, representing. But I mean, we saw this with YouTube and we still do, where the algorithm starts changing to make them money, and what makes them money are big names. So that way now we're seeing like Jimmy Kimmel and like all these places that have televised things, they just repurpose it, put it on YouTube and make a shitload of money because everybody knows their name. And
yeah.
it's like it drowns out what YouTube was, which is small creators, doing a thing. And it was inevitable. And now that we're transferring over, we're like, why do we even have TV? And there's that whole thing. But it's inevitable that corporations are going to abuse this thing. Welcome to America. So it sucks, but I'm not saying we need to go back because we're never going back.
Okay, but is it now responsible? Let's say that one of the problems that we have currently is the transparency of social media, meaning that you don't really know where things are coming from. You don't really know who's posting that, onto the web, and you also don't know their affiliations. Maybe some of those things should be required in order to. So, like, if you are a employee of NBC and you have an account that's a Twitter account, it should notify it should be part of that saying, hey, I'm an employee. This is an employee of NBC, or this is an employee of, I mean, yes, to create more transparency to these networks, because obviously, this is the big problem with the internet in my eyes, is that it's the troll syndrome, right? Like, you're an anonymous person, so you
Yeah.
can get away with anything. I think that you should be able to source these things back to where they're coming from so that you can make honest decisions on the credibility of it, or if you want to listen.
I mean, that's something I actually have never thought of. Not even on a Twitter level, but like, should the internet be as unanimous as it is? Which, like, yeah, because that's always how it's been. But at the same time, I think that actually not even think like I think we could all agree that the unanimousness is that the anonymous? I don't know. Yeah,
Anonymous,
sure.
yeah.
One of those fucking words.
Yeah.
The fact that that word exists in the internet so much is the problem with the internet. If you don't have any
Yeah.
accountability for what you say, and that's why before the internet, people blame the internet for stupid shit and things like that. Yeah, before, because if you said shit, either A, no one would listen to you because you can't just massively talk to millions at once, or B, they could just be like, well, I know you're gonna say, like, I know you said, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that this is where my argument comes from, is I think this is should be required, or at least there should be some sort of research in this area of trying to depolarize the internet from these leading media companies, because Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I mean, they're the ones that kind of hold how it's functioning, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that there should be some sort of accountability there, where they need to not necessarily, I don't care about them denying service to certain people, whether they want to do that or not, that's fine, but I do think that they run these algorithms, and they need to kind of look at this uh sympathetically towards the future, because it's only going to get worse. And I honestly think that we have to solve this problem, because I think it's causing problems.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to Twitter, I think that they're gonna do something. And the weirdness is that they waited until the last 10 days of his presidency to do this, and like,
Yeah.
neat, good for them. But like, dude, the fucking damage is done. Like, you could have
But you
done this
can't
4 years ago, and we would have, there would have been
they
a
would have
lot of.
lost too many users. They would have lost so many,
See,
and they
that's the
may
thing. It's
still
it's
lose a
up to
lot of
Twitter what they
users.
want to be. If Twitter wants to be what the app that they made, then they shouldn't even have banned him. Well, not okay.
No, they
Arguably,
shouldn't
no,
have
they
banned it.
should
But
have, because he probably broke their terms of service. I haven't
what
read
was
their
the
terms of service, so I don't know if he actually broke it or not. Maybe he did, and then it's like whatever. Or maybe they're just saying, I don't like Trump, we're gonna ban him. Whatever. Glad they banned him. But
yeah.
what I'm saying is, yeah, if they want to start, I mean, this is a weird example, but look at Pornhub, what they just did. They removed all unverified accounts and videos from their
It's great.
thing. Yeah, which is great. And they did that as a way of making their platform a more, I guess, higher quality, or just to avoid the whole deep fake thing. I think that that's their start of, we need to make this a better, more viable platform. Granted, it's the porn platform, but whatever.
Hey, best one out there.
And and so now you have to be verified to use that platform. And maybe Twitter needs to consider, maybe you have to be verified to use that platform in a
Yeah.
significant way, which I wouldn't be opposed to, because so for me, like, I don't want the unanimousness of Twitter. I agree that I think that causes way more problems than it could ever solve. And I know the only reason anyone who's like, well, I want to be unanimous, is just, okay, why?
Yeah.
Like, okay, what shit are you gonna spill on the internet that we don't need to fucking hear? I would love if Twitter was just a verified only platform, because that's how it is. I'm a normal everyday dude. I should be able to get verified as a normal everyday dude and use it, because I like the normal everyday people on that platform.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, news networks are always verified and stuff like that, but yeah, it's weird. I wish Twitter was a place where it wasn't corporate and Just it was just people talking like a social media platform should be, but it's not, and it never will be ever again.
Yeah, and it is in a certain point. I mean, it's up to what people want to listen to. It That's still stuff still is out there, and YouTube's is like. I remember we had a thing you were saying that you were not finding good YouTube videos anymore, and I was telling you just basically search for it yourself every so often, and you'll find cool stuff. I think that's true with every single platform out there. It's the problem is these platforms are also made to reinforce your beliefs.
Yeah.
So it's this repurposing of your
Oh,
own.
definitely.
So you get stuck. You can get easily stuck, and that's another thing I think they need to address is this idea of people getting stuck in their biases, basically, and not allowing for other information to. And it's so amazing. It's like when people get the other side breaks into their little ecosystem, they freak out. They're like,
Oh
"Oh my god, the
So
other side is posting on my side!" And what?
Yeah,
There's
this is
another
something
side?
that I hate about TikTok, but I also love because TikTok is so curated. Their goal is to find videos you want to watch. So it's like a term of saying I am on like steak TikTok, where you just watch people make steak, or I'm on gamer
Yeah,
TikTok. And it's weird because you go to someone else's phone and it's like a different fucking app.
yeah.
You see videos, I'm like, I've never seen that. And they're like, what do you mean? I see this every day. This is like a popular thing. And I'm like, I've literally never heard of what you're talking about. Which is so odd because Reddit was like, I feel like Reddit was, I mean, it still is, but the way Reddit works is so great. It's because you can optionally follow and say, I am following this thing. And then it'll be like, okay, I'm going to show you things you follow. But if you want to go to the front page, it's just whatever Reddit is talking about. And it's
That's
like,
how it should be.
and it should, yeah. And like with TikTok, it's nice that I see videos I like, and sometimes, but it's just this weird like, then why the fuck am I following people? Because when you follow someone on TikTok, it's not like it shows you those videos. There's a following tab, you can go and see only videos, which okay, bullshit, because they don't show them in any chronological order. So you see videos from these people out of order. Like you'll follow someone and it'll be like, oh, here's a video from last July, and then here's one from yesterday, and you're like, why the fuck am I it TikTok is such a weird fucking app, but I'm
Yeah.
worried that's where apps are going to be going, because they've wanted all these apps on paper, and Amazon's the same way, and all these things are like, we want to curate to what you want, and it makes sense. But at the same time, I think that we're losing diversity of knowledge and diversity of communication that was like
Yes.
so
Yeah.
pure to our culture. And holy shit, we're getting shit on. And Twitter's the same way. You see only the things that you follow, which is why I like their trending page. It's kind of like Reddit, but at the same time, that was what Twitter was built for. It's a like it was designed as a mass texting app. Which if you're
Yeah.
texting someone, you know them, so it was built for. Oh, I just want to hear what this person has to say every day, and that's perfectly fine. And then it's like, well, if you want to see what other people are talking about, go to the trending page, which is just like Reddit. Facebook is a different app entirely, but whatever. Like, so I liked the difference in those apps. And it was kind of weird because I feel like a decade ago, maybe even half a decade ago, probably before the Trump presidency, it felt like every social media app had a purpose. It was like Instagram, you post photos there. Facebook, you get to know your friends or you talk to family there. And Twitter, you just see what's happening. And then there's news apps and all that stuff. And now every goddamn app wants to be the same fucking app.
Oh
Like
yeah. They're all
everyone, like
vying for the
Instagram is
same.
like, oh no, you can follow news networks on Instagram now. You can get things from Instagram. You can post on stories. Oh, guess what? Twitter has stories too. Facebook has stories too. It's like, which stories were it
Well, I
felt
mean,
more of like a thing of like, oh yeah, that's what this person's doing. Like that's
Instagram
what
and
tweets
Facebook are the
for.
same company.
Well, yeah, they weren't always, but ever since
Yeah.
then, yeah, they
But
just
I
keep
mean, now
merging.
they are. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, now Snapchat has stories, and then it's like, okay, well now TikTok. It's just, why does every app have to be the and
Well,
we've talked about this in games. Why does an app have to be the only app? Why do they have to work so hard to be like, we want to make sure you don't use any other app and you spend all of your time on our app? And the same thing with games. Like, why does it like, oh, we want to make sure that you're spending all of your time playing this game. And Destiny's this way of like, we want to make sure you always have something to do, but it then starts feeling like I only have time for this one game, and if I don't have enough time for it, I shouldn't even be playing it. Like, why
yeah.
can't we just have these bite-sized things again?
Well, it's interesting because since they are all becoming and trending towards these developments that become popularized, and I think it's important to somewhat regulate that, because it does create problems. I mean, this feedback loop of, not being able to, not seeing outside information other than what you already believe is causing the polarization and is causing these issues that are continually getting worse. And I honestly, I think that that's the responsibility that I'm talking about. I just, and especially since everybody's kind of doing the same thing, and when something becomes popularized, everybody does it, then it's across the board we're having these issues, and like I don't know. I don't know if it's the government or, there just needs to be some sort of standardization or at least conversation about the path that we're trekking, because
Yeah.
where are we going? Like, where's this going to be in 15 years and 20 years, with information and how it's being curated, and I think that we kind of need to talk about this, and we're not really talking about this. We're yelling about it, but that's at least something, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I think I think the question of where are we going with this is a good way of phrasing that question, which, I mean, the internet is a very young industry, product, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like, it's only been around for 2 decades, really, and three, I guess, but really the modern internet has been around for about 2 decades now, and I think that there's a lot of people who view it as one way of like it should be how it always is, which is the wild west of shit. Which
Yeah.
if you go that way, then it's like okay, whatever. But I think that worked at the beginning of its life, where it was like, no, that's what the purpose of the internet is. It's supposed to be this crazy fucking place, and now it's literally a part of every single day communication, which is the argument for it should be a utility, but that's a separate argument entirely. But it is so ingrained in everybody's life that we need to start thinking, should it be the wild fucking west of everything if all of our lives surround it? Everything in our lives is around the internet.
The problem with the Wild West thing is it's very much, I always talk about like, how communism's never really been tried out.
We've talked
like,
about that?
no, I have in like other
Okay, I
conversations.
was
But,
like, I don't
think
know if
it's
that's the
ever
podcast
really
we
been.
want to set.
I don't think it's, and I'm not like a communist or anything, but I just feel like the problem with communism is that it leaves a void for power, and I think that that's kind of what the internet was when it first started, was everybody was equal,
Yes.
so there was, but the problem is that leaves a void for power, and then people come in and they take that power and they wield that power, and that's the problem we're seeing right now, is there's just such powerful forces within this ecosystem that I think that and I don't want the government to regulate things, because that's not always turns out so well.
Exactly.
But I do think that there just needs to be an open conversation, transparency. I think transparency actually is the only thing that cures this problem. And I don't know how you make the internet transparent so that you know who's saying what, and like, and just, I don't know, the way that it is, because you just really can't tell who's pushing what agenda and how they're pushing it and why they are, and if there's financial gains to it, and like where, and it's just kind of crazy.
I mean, and I agree. Like, I don't necessarily would say that I trust our government to regulate the damn internet, but at the same time, our internet is the internet is a worldwide thing. So it would have to be something
that's true.
United
But a lot of
Nations
these companies,
or something like that would have to do.
UN, yeah.
Yeah, but and like, yeah, you can regulate pockets. Like, Twitter can spend the next 5 years really regulating their platform, but see, that's the thing, is like, if Twitter does all this, and then people are like, well, I don't want it to be this way, it should be how it old. Guess what? Someone just made a new Twitter. What?
Who owns Twitter?
Twitter's
Did
Twitter.
they get bought up?
No.
I thought they got bought up.
I don't think so. I think Twitter's big enough to where they wouldn't. Who owns...
Oh, that's right. They went public, IPO.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jack Dorsey's still founder,
Okay.
and which is good for them.
Oh, Jack Dorsey. Okay,
I agree. I think it should just be, again, that's the like. See, I don't know. Twitter's weird
but that's another U.S. company. So I mean, like that most of the companies are in the U.S. So I think that's why it's coming on the shoulders.
Oh, I mean, yeah, Silicon Valley is
yeah,
a US thing.
So a lot of these, I mean, this is very much our problem, even though it affects the entire world. But you're right.
But it's like, if Twitter does this and they go that route and they do all this work, people are gonna leave and just go to the next platform. And we've seen that but like, it's always what's the next. Like, Twitter's been around for a long time, but again, the internet's only been 20 years old, so we don't see it. But trending, it's always whenever that new platform kicks off, everybody jumps on it. We saw like MySpace came and went, Facebook came and I guess went. It's just like not a lot of people use it on the same in terms of like younger people, I guess. It's a different community than it was. And then Snapchat came, and it's starting to kind of go away. People are like, whatever. And then there was Vine, and now we have Twitter, and Twitter became more popular and then less popular, and then now it's just everything.
But I don't think Twitter's going to go away because it serves a purpose for a lot of people in business, you know, and also just this idea of the edge of the news or the edge of society or whatever.
But I don't think Twitter is getting – I think TikTok is the edge of society at this point. The amount of people using that app – and how fat, you know how many social, like how many big networks have now used TikTok as their number one place to get advertising because it works? Yeah. Everybody is on there and it starts getting curated. Then you can get to your users better, which arguably not great. But again, now TikTok is becoming that thing. So it's like, okay, when are we going to get TikTok stories? And people have news on TikTok. You can have like news networks have TikToks and you can watch CBS News post a little clip and it's like, here's what's happening. And you're like, holy shit, guess what app is now the big thing? Yeah. And I think that, I mean, Trump tried to ban TikTok and there's that whole argument and that's Chinese owned companies. So that's a bigger argument. But I mean, if that came out 4 years ago, what stops him from, you know, having Trump on TikTok? And then we just get our social news from Trump on TikTok rather than Twitter. And it's just,
I don't know if Twitter's going to go. I mean, Twitter's been around for quite a while.
Go away. Like, it's not going to go the MySpace route.
I know what you mean.
But if they regulate it and become a platform that they are not, because Twitter was not that platform. But if they go the route, they're changing what Twitter is to everybody. Someone's going to make a new app called Twitter 2.0, and it's going to be unregulated, and it's literally going to be like, hey, guess what? It's Twitter. And people are like, cool, we can go back to Twitter now. And then it's like, well, what the fuck? There's no, like, that's how the internet goes. It's like you're saying, there's a void of power. There's a void of use. If Twitter becomes the regulated platform, someone's going to make the unregulated platform.
But I do think that they can tweak their numbers and tweak their algorithms and put things in place that people don't really notice that can help the problem. You know, and as long as you're not affecting the way that people are using your application and also affecting the way that they're finding data, I don't know. I mean, I think that throwing somebody an outside video or an outside tweet every so often, you know, or like just I don't know.
See, the thing is you mentioned like transparency, and I agree we should have more transparency. Should these algorithms be transparent? Which, I mean, these companies have gone to court for. Like, they went to court because they were like, are you pushing an agenda with your algorithms, which you won't disclose? Because Google's like, we won't disclose our algorithms. We're the best search platform. But, you know, it's kind of scary because when you look at Google here and you look at Google in a different country, the fact that you get different results when you search the same damn thing, and especially when, like, Google in China is completely, like, you know, regulated by the government. Like, that's the extremist route. That's kind of not great. I mean, again, it's like, well, then now Google is that platform. We have curated your searching, and now DuckDuckGo is like, we're not. Like, well, now we made our thing. So we're going to get a DuckDuckGo of Twitter if Twitter becomes the regulator.
Well, DuckDuckGo is not just that. I mean, their whole thing was privacy and also just being able to protect your data. I mean,
definitely,
that's the
and good
main
for them.
Platform.
Love them for it.
Yeah, no, I'm a DuckDuckGo user as well.
And that's the problem with the internet is like you can just always make the next new thing. But people will gravitate towards, even if it's just a new thing. I don't know. Like, I mean, right now there's a lot of people pushing this new app called Signal because it's encrypted end to end. Yeah, it's literally just like Facebook Messenger, but it's encrypted end to end, and it's supposed to be like the unbiased social media. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, but what? It reminds me of when COVID happened and then Zoom happened. I don't understand how Zoom happened. Like, honest to God. No one knew about Zoom.
TeamSpaces sucks.
Well, yeah, but no one knew about Zoom. And then COVID happens, and I mean, I'm assuming Zoom. Oh, yeah, Zoom was free, which is why so many things used it, like schools, because they're cheap as fuck. But we looked at this random platform from some random company we've never fucking heard of, and went, "Yep, let's have every single thing in all human communication be surrounded about this app." Good for Zoom. And then we had security breaches, because no shit, who is this company? Like, But we already had Skype by Microsoft, who has so much background in security. I know it's not as good, but Microsoft Teams, they've been building a shit ton of features
Yeah, but
around
also
COVID,
they're
so good
not
for them.
multi-platform. I mean, like the idea of having a Microsoft. I mean, half the
Well, they're on
community
every
is
app,
using.
or
Well,
they're
no,
on
I
every
know, but
platform.
I just think that that's why we needed an impartial player that wasn't part of a larger company. And I think that's probably why Zoom. I have no idea. You're right.
And it's just weird because like, why did we trust this random company? Like, like, what if, I mean, they had their security breaches and they fixed them, and I'm sure it's a lot better of a platform than it was, but what if in 2 years we were like, oh, guess what, this random company Zoom was doing this thing and we didn't know about it? And then, I mean, and it's funny because at the same time that Zoom was taking off, we were getting all scared about what is TikTok taking from us, and it's owned by China and all this stuff. But it's just
Which
weird
I
where we
didn't think
place our
mattered either.
trust. Like, yeah, I don't fucking care. I use it, whatever. But
Yeah.
again, what am I to hide? I'm not a fucking terrorist. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go storm the Capitol building. They don't need to know me.
Yeah,
But
but I do think you're right. I mean, you make some really good arguments here, and I think that that's why I keep going towards maybe it should be a governmental or a UN thing, because you're right. If you put it up to these companies and then they make changes, then they're risking their because basically if you have a great clientele, don't touch anything, right?
yeah,
Take the ride. And and once you start messing with the platform, you're going to piss a certain. And this happens actually. We can bring this back to games. This happens in games all the time when although I don't think users really know what the hell they want, but like, companies are so afraid to change the baseline mechanics that everyone came to love because they'll piss off their user base. And it comes to the same thing, but something needs to happen. Even if there was like some sort of, what do you call it? Not a caucus. Basically people get together and talk. What is that?
town hall.
Well, sure. Let's call it a town. A town hall. If there was a town hall amongst all the tech companies that are out there, the large tech companies that came together and just even discussed this, and like, where are we going? As that kind of like almost like a technology UN. That's what we need. We need from the private sector. We need to have some sort of conversation here. I don't know what the solution is. I don't. I think there needs to be something, that kind of dictates where we're headed. And I don't
Yeah,
know who's going to do it. Who's going to risk their balls on
I
this
don't know
one?
either because we just haven't. There's been nothing like the internet ever. Like, we literally
Yeah.
are dealing with this brand new thing that we are trying to keep as it was. But even though it's been a certain way, and that's great, I don't know if it's the smart move to keep it the way it was. Now, I'm not going to say I want the internet regulated. I'm not going to be that guy publicly saying, let's fucking government regulate the internet. I'm just saying, just because something is the way it is does not mean it's good and
Yeah.
is not causing drastic harm to our culture, because it is.
Well,
Um,
a lot of times, structures are put into place and we see this in computer science all the time, where we have to carry old APIs around for life.
yeah.
Um,
Love you,
but
Microsoft.
yes. But it's kind of the same way. I mean, a lot of the structure and the ideals and the concepts that were brought into place when it first started are still around, and they just aren't they're not doing the job.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
they're
that's just a problem we have is this country is we don't modernize, and I don't know why. Like, I mean, we look at, like, we hold we hold our constitution to this high standard of god tier level of writing, and it was written 200 years ago by some 20-year-olds. Like, I
pretty
don't
smart.
trust myself. Were they? Were they
Well, I
smart
mean, smarter than
20-year-olds?
20-year-olds are today.
Yeah, but like, they were
I
still
understand.
like, they were all we had, I think, is the better idea. Like, we didn't have a ton of people going around. So again, what they wrote at the time, fucking great. Awesome. Free
Yeah.
country. I don't think we should be going back and saying, "Oh my god, this is the pinnacle of information, like the pinnacle of rule sets for an entire
Yeah.
country." But we're never going to go back and look at that and be like, "Why don't we reconsider some things or word them in a different way that people can't abuse?" And I think you're right. The internet's the same way. Like, oh, it's this free thing and everybody should be able to do whatever the fuck they want on the internet. I don't know about that. We've had some
Well,
shit things happen throughout the internet because the internet is unanimous. Like, Holy
Yeah,
moly.
it's I mean, I don't know, just I don't care how it, what happens. I just want to see people talking about it. This is actually true about, government and in a whole. I don't think that the things that it's almost as if our society can only see they can't see past their nose, right? Like that,
No, they
like
can't.
it's like they can only look like at best 3 years in the future.
Hmm.
Like they don't look at 50. I mean, the fact that we're not even talking about the decimation that automation's going to take on our society and our jobs, and like we're not even talking about it, and it's like it's not even in the presidential platform of, what plan does anyone have for this, or like what plan does anyone have? I mean,
Well,
yes, we're talking.
it's because God, this is such an interesting podcast, but it's because we're stuck on all these fucking problems, especially our country. We are stuck on problems that all these other places have solved. Like,
Yeah,
why are we're literally like every single campaign for I don't know how long has been like we have a student loan problem, we have should gay people have rights, should abortion be okay? Like, and it never gets solved, and we're just sitting here circling the same fucking problems, and I'm like, yeah, I agree. And now we're at that point where it's like, oh, climate change is so goddamn bad, we're screwed.
well,
And
it's
it's man.
I always look at it this way, and yes, of course, this will have a political stance, so take it as you will. But I look at life as the inevitables, right? There are certain things that are just fucking inevitable that you can't. Yeah, you can slow them down, but you're like gay marriage, like, duh, that's gonna happen, and that's gonna be a thing. You're not gonna stop that. You're not gonna stop gay people from existing.
Yeah,
So,
it's
like,
so
that was like
frustrating.
it's just like, why are we wasting time on this? If you go 50 years down the line, hopefully we're not talking about this anymore, because even if you were to, and this is a terrible statement, even if you were to genocide all gay people would still be created, because it's not a race, it's not a thing that's like so it's like,
Like, yeah, no, I agree. It's so
and I'm not
frustrating
saying
to
that's a thing. It's just like, why are we like, they are here, they love each other. Who gives a fucking shit? Let's move on, and so we can concentrate on other things. It's like, why are we wasting time on this?
I totally agree, and it's so frustrating because I think we have a very similar outlook on life and things. Of like, I think people don't realize how short life is because you're saying like we only look 3 to 4, 5 years into the future. I feel like as a society, 3 to 5 years doesn't sound that long, and I don't know why because it's a long ass time. Like it's not long, but at the same time, so much shit can happen in 3 to 5 years that is
Yeah.
so different, and we need to start looking at it as like every year big things are going to happen and a lot of things are going to change, and there's something that's going to happen that could pretty much change how everything ever is. And yeah, one of my biggest pet peeves in this world is when people complain and get so upset over things that they have absolutely zero control over. And I'm like, why are you wasting so much time, effort, and energy complaining about a thing that you literally can't even fix? Like, it's just like, and it kind of goes to what you were saying about gay people and giving them rights and all these other problems that we're literally fighting because all of these people are doing everything that they can to make sure nothing changes, and like they're pushing their own opinion when at the end of the day, if you just gave it 50 years, it's going to happen. And it's like, well, then why can't we just go with it and just
I mean,
move on?
I can't see a future where, there's equal, like we don't keep moving. Maybe we'll ping pong back and forth between equality and not equality, but we're still moving in the general direction of equality. There are trends that are
Yeah.
happening that aren't going to change. It's to look at that overall and just say, hey, let's just go that direction. This is actually very true. Although, they try to slow down science a lot too,
Ugh.
in different ways. And it's like, and yes, I get it. Like, yeah, we could create something that, I know there's a story where they were trying to create black holes, but or no, sorry, the Big Bang. They were trying to recreate the Big Bang, but then they were worried that
Nice.
it might wipe out our whole existence.
Fucking shit. What is this? What is this
So
evil
yeah,
Marvel villain comic 101? Don't do
so
that shit.
so yeah, there are obviously there has to be some sort of checks there, because you don't want that to happen. But I do think that, like, there are things that are coming, and that we're not talking about, that are a little past our viewpoint, and I don't know why no one's talking about it. I
Well, I
mean, the
mean,
most
that's
thing that global warming is probably the furthest out that we're talking about.
well, and then not even that. We're doing the same thing with global warming. It's been a problem for I don't know how. Like, it's been a problem for decades, and we've known it is. But because it is not, you're gonna die in 3 years. No one gives a goddamn shit.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
annoying because I'm like, it is. It's just annoying. I'm like, I don't.
Well,
It's sometimes, and it goes back to what you're talking about. Like, why can't we just move on to more important things? It blows my mind when there are problems in this world that can be solved with common sense, and we refuse to use common sense.
well, it's like you talk to someone. Okay, let's say that global warming isn't a thing. It's not real. And
Sure.
of course, I might get. These are not my opinions. All the things that I'm saying, I'm just using ridiculous
Big
comments
fat
here. So don't.
asterisk next to this
So
next
do
quote.
not take anything I've said on this podcast too seriously because, yeah, I know that when you say political stuff like this, it gets people in riles. But
Just don't run for president,
yeah,
Cody.
but let's say there is no global warming, right? Like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Do you not like clean air? Are we not on the same board? I like clean air.
Holy
You mean you don't
fuck.
like clean air?
I
I just-
know. It's like
Clean
we look
water?
at
You don't like
places
clean water? You don't like
I know. It's like,
Like,
it's
what-
not hard. Like you don't you want to look at that pile of trash? Like you want to see Trash Island? Is this what you want to wake up to every fucking day? Like again, this is my problem of why can't we use more common sense? Because I think we need to just start asking people those questions. It should not be, do you believe in global warming? You literally just ask them, hey, do you want clean water? Yeah. Oh, hey, do you want clean air? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to go do that. Shut the fuck up. I am going to go achieve what you just said you wanted. Fuck you.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
it.
just it's just funny that just that's the way the trends are going, and all the energy companies see this. I mean, they're all involved in clean energy, and they're all trying to because they know that coal and fossil fuels is not the future. First off, there's one it's diminishing product that we're putting out into the universe.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense to use. It's just, oh.
Well, I mean, right now there's not enough to cover for coverage. I mean, you couldn't. I don't know. I mean,
The only reason why electricity and electric cars is not the viable way of transportation right now is because of money. And it was cheaper to use the other one, so they spent all of their time using the other one and literally just pushing off the inevitable. Like we were saying, it was inevitable that we would have to go to electric cars, and it still is. There shouldn't, and everybody should be trying to do that. But it's cheaper to use coal, so why don't we just save some money? It's like, fuck you.
Well,
Holy
and the
fuck.
other thing is that like people will always say, well, oh, the plants that are producing the energy. So even if you have an electric car, I've heard this stupid argument. Even if you have an electric car, you're still the carbon imprint's the same. Yeah, but now you only have to regulate 50 places rather than 50 billion or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
like it's so much
shit.
easier to regulate a couple of plants and increase their output, or decrease their output of fossil fuels than trying to regulate every single vehicle that's on the road that people are buying vehicles from like 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and it's annoying when people don't rely, and I mean, I know you can't rely on things that aren't real, but if 50 years ago you would have described a phone, someone would have been like, yeah, hey, fuck you, that's not real. But now it's completely fucking real. So even if you're sitting there like, well, there's no way to make an electric car with zero carbon imprint. It's like, okay, well, there's gotta be a way. And if we just move forward, we will find a way one day. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
No, because I agree. There's a carbon imprint of making an electric car, but it's like once you then make the car, you don't have a fucking carbon imprint.
Well, and also
one,
it's just reduced amount of places that you're doing that because the factory that's making it is just one place and it's making thousands of things.
Yeah. So it's easier to do that one regulator, but it's baffling that we suck as a community. So welcome to our gaming podcast.
Yeah. Well, we had. I mean, it's I know we went a little off board, like as we always do, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think that that there has to be something. I hope that these companies come together and help regulate information. I don't know about regulate, but just talk. Let's just talk. That's all I ever want, and make it transparent so everyone can hear it. An open town hall would be great. Don't do it behind closed doors. Let's just start talking about these problems that are, coming about and everyone knows that are going to happen. Let's have a conversation.
Actually, before we leave, the one thing we didn't talk about was there's Twitter going the whole regulation route where when the last year what they've been doing, which is if there's a big platform that is talking about a thing that is fake, they literally tell the thing and it says this is fake news. Like they literally have those things.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
So
which is nice.
Is that enough?
it's a start.
Because that's more transparent. I agree with you. It's a start.
It's a start, and I think that's what we're doing. I think that's what needs to be required is a start.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there's our podcast. Don't take our opinions too seriously.
Yeah, if
we're
this
just
is your first time
schmoes.
listening, we are a gaming podcast, I swear.
Yeah, we are a gaming podcast. All right. Well, thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.